Welcome back to the 78 K5 Blazer. If you saw the first video on this truck, we did the bare minimum what we had to do to get it going and take it for a little spin. So that's where we left off on it. The guy who owns this truck, he sent me a message this week and said, hey, what's next for the Blazer? So I said, well, we're going to do a compression check on it. An engine is basically an air pump. You add fuel and spark to it to drive that air pump. But if the air pump is not working properly, nothing else will work properly. So I won't throw a bunch of parts in it until we know that the actual engine is okay. So we're going to start off by doing a compression check on it and go from there. To do a compression check, we're going to take each individual spark plug out. We're going to look at every spark plug that comes out of this motor. We're going to keep them in order. A spark plug, reading a spark plug will tell you a lot about what's going on inside of an engine. So we're going to do that, and I'll prop the throttle plate open on the carburetor, the choke plate also, so it gets a good airflow going through the carburetor. And I already have a battery charger going because you end up cranking the motor over a bunch when you're doing that. But we'll get a compression reading on each cylinder, and then we'll go from there, see what happens. But hopefully they're all fairly even, and we'll be able to do a simple tune-up to this thing and bring it back to life. So all right. One thing to remember, you never know where somebody dropped a distributor down. So mark which one they got for number 1, just so you know.
Okay.
And then, I mean, the firing order, we know that, but if somebody had put the spark plug or the distributor wherever they wanted, then that would create a problem. So
are you marking the wires out here too?
no, because I'm going to check each individual wire, and then I know the firing order anyway. But if you didn't know the firing order, you'd want to mark it. All right, I'm on my last one. How many you got done?
I got 1 done.
So you're 1 to 4.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna zip tie the throttle all the way open. It's very important when you're done doing this to cut the zip ties so the throttle is not all the way open, because the engine goes very fast. And it's amazing how long it will go fast before it blows up. So we'll make sure we cut that, okay? And we'll prop the choke open so that way it's getting a nice breath of air when we're doing the compression check. All right, so each spark plug pretty much looks like this. So they're kind of rich is all, but I was hoping there'd be a couple of them that just were like kegged with oil that would be an obvious engine misfire, but none of them are. So that's kind of a bummer, but I guess it could be worse. It means the what is going on inside the engine's probably pretty even since they all look the same. So it's good and it's bad in a way. So we've got all the spark plugs out, and then on the HEI distributors on this small block Chevy, just disconnect the battery wire going to it, so you won't be making any spark. There we go. That'll do it.
Start with number 1.
Yep. We'll do the driver's side first. And, okay, so we got the compression gauge stuck in the number 1 cylinder. She's gonna jump in the truck. We got the battery charger going on the battery because we're gonna crank this thing over quite a bit. We're gonna crank it over until it kind of levels out, and we'll see what we get for compression on this one. So let's give it a shot. Ready?
Ready.
All right, go. All right, I'm gonna call that one 130 pounds.
Ready?
Yep. All right. $125, maybe just a pinch more. So that's good so far. Yep.
How'd that one do?
A little over 125, so it came right up. Are you ready?
Ready. That one was like 140.
Okay.
Get out of here.
There you go.
All right. Either I did something wrong or that one is dead.
What's it do?
Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
You want to do that one again?
Sure. Did you have the thing screwed all the way in? Didn't have your finger on the compression button?
No. Here, let me make sure I got that. Yeah, it's tight. All right, try it again. All right. Yeah, it's not doing anything.
Okay.
Womp womp.
Not what we wanted.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
That's number 4.
Yep.
All right. Just wave to me. I can't hear you, so.
Okay. Ready.
It was cranked kind of slow, so I'm going to call that 125.
Okay. Oh, I might as well be a little early on that one. That one hit 140 again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Might be able to pinch over 140.
That's cool. Okay, you're in big trouble because I got a whiteboard this week, so put your learning hats on because you're going to learn some things. These are our results from our compression check. Everything looked great until we got to number 4 right there. Number 4 puts out exactly 0 pounds of compression, so it's a completely dead cylinder, which I kind of like because that kind of means that it's probably not the rings or the cylinder that's putting out 0 pounds. Unless those rings really got stuck in that piston, it's probably going to put out some kind of pressure. So I'm gonna bet my money that it's got an intake or an exhaust valve that's either one of the exhaust valve might be burnt, or it might have one of them stuck open, which if one of them stuck open, that's great because we can easily fix that. So what we're going to do next, we're going to rotate this number 4 piston up to its top dead center, and we're going to make sure it's on a compression stroke, so both the intake and the exhaust valves will be closed. And we're going to stick the compression gauge back in there, and we're going to introduce air pressure into it. And we'll be able to listen into the intake and the exhaust and into the engine block and see where that air pressure is leaking off to, and that'll tell us which is the problem of those 3 items. So that's how you go about doing that, and that's what we'll do next. So what we're going to do is called a cylinder leak test. And I'm going to use the same hose that we use for the compression check, but this hose has got a Schrader valve on the end of it to keep the pressure just one way in this hose up to the gauge when you're checking for compression. So in order to do a leak down test, if you don't have a specific hose just to do that, you have to take the Schrader valve out of it. Schrader valve, just like a regular tire tool. Take it out, remove that. Make sure you don't lose that piece because you will need to put it back in it. But I'll put it over here. So, okay, so then we'll screw this in, and then the our shop air compressor fitting will go right onto that, and it'll be blowing pressurized air into the cylinder. We're going to end up taking the valve covers off of it anyway because I'm almost certain it's some kind of a valve issue. So we can take the valve cover off of it real quick, and we'll be able to see what position our valves are in. And they need to be closed, of course. So by having access to them, we can definitely make sure they're closed. But if they're not closed, we could back their studs off the rockers or whatever, just to get the test over with quickly. Or maybe there's a chance that we'll take this off and just find a valve that's stuck down, so we could possibly just take a hammer and start giving it a few little taps and working on it a little bit, and it may close. That would be best case scenario. The other best case scenario would be somebody that adjusted the rockers on it and did it too tight on that cylinder. Oh, or there's that scenario. This is the other best scenario. This rocker has completely come off. So that's the exhaust valve. So most likely the exhaust valve is stuck open, would be the reason for that to happen. Okay. So this truck, it sat all that time, and in the position that the engine last ran, that exhaust valve was stuck open. So then you go and you can tell the rocker's adjusted pretty good. All the studs are about the same height. And so you go to fire it up after it sits that long, and that valve is stuck open and it just gets flopped over. So it would have, if it had hung in there a little bit, there's a chance that it could have worked it out. So we're gonna spray this down with some WD-40, which I usually do right when I start anything. Spray it with WD-40. Mm-hmm. You get it?
Yeah, the WD-40 kid.
Okay, and then we're gonna take a rubber mallet and we're gonna start tapping on this and see if we can't get that valve to move. And by the time, if it does start moving, and by the time we get done tapping on it or whatever, hopefully that'll be nice and tight against its push rod, and everything will be fine. So, and, the push rod, it's a little bent. Can you see that? That's also something that happens when you fire up an engine that has been sitting for a while, because those valves, they do not want to move. So you're gonna possibly bend a push rod, and definitely did on that one. But that push rod wasn't bent bad enough that we can't at least run it, and then we'll check the rest of the other ones since that was like that. So let's give it a shot. Did you see it move?
Mm-mm. Oh, I see it.
Once in a while it bounces up real good.
Mm-hmm. That's better, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming up a little bit. It's getting hard to get on there. Go ahead and give it some air pressure now. Fire up the tank.
And we just put it on full blast.
Yeah. on it. It feels like it's moving pretty good now.
It looks like it.
Right? So. Alright. Today is the second day of doing this. Of trying to get this valve going. But last night when I hammered on this for probably close to an hour, and it would move a little bit. You can kind of see it in the video. It'd move down and it would come back up, and but it just wouldn't come back up to its seat. So last night when I decided to quit, I took a WD-40 straw, stuck it up underneath the rotator valve keeper, and sprayed it down good with PB Blaster and some WD-40, and let it sit overnight. So we were just hammering on it, and it kind of seems like it's coming up now. So I went to the parts store this morning. I got a new push rod for it. So we'll put the push rod in it, and then we'll see if that has come up all the way or not. Okay, so I know there were about that much thread left on the rocker stud last night, and before it would, the rocker arm would flip off of it. So it has come up some. So I'm going to adjust this rocker. I'm going to take it down to where it has 0 lash in it, to where it touches the top of that valve seat. And I'm going to give it a 1/4 of a turn. And then this one, last night I backed it off a 1/2 a turn, the intake valve. I backed it off a 1/2 turn just to when we were checking with the air pressure in the cylinder, just to make sure it was the valve was closed. So I think that valve is closed now, and we will do a compression check on it now and see if we have any compression. And that'll tell us if we fixed it. I spilled some oil there, so it'll smoke later.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Surely it won't smoke as bad as the Ford.
I don't know. I don't appreciate you using the F word around here.
We don't allow that kind of talk.
All right. What do you think? Is it gonna have compression?
We can't do worse than what we did the first time, so.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Here we go.
Okay. We still got nothing.
Nothing?
Absolutely nothing.
Oh, God. No. Well, all right, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna back this rocker off, okay, to where it's got quite a bit of free play in it. Not enough to where it'll fall off of its push rod again. we're going to put the spark plugs back in it, and we're going to fire it up. And at that point, hopefully this thing moving, maybe a little bit of heat in it too, it might bring that out of it. So we're going to try to do that. Sound like a plan?
Sure.
Okay.
Here we go. Are we gonna put the valve cover back on it?
No.
Okay.
No. Okay. All right. So I'm going to make sure the throttle's closed. Get rid of my vice or my zip ties. I'm going to hook the distributor back up. Okay. All right. Do you want to start it or do you want me to start it?
I'll start it.
All right. Give her a shot. Well, it's a real bummer, but I think what happened, and it happens with some of these that we work on. Sometimes you're lucky and you have one that sits for 20 years, and you can go and you fire it up, and you don't have any internal engine problems at all. But sometimes that doesn't happen. It depends on where the car sat, what kind of climate you live in, and a whole bunch of different variables. So in this case, I think it had sat in its park position with the exhaust valve open, which is completely normal. Some of the valves are going to have to be open when it's stopped, and I think it got somehow or another got some moisture. We've taken them apart, and mice had actually gotten up into as far up as into the exhaust manifolds and sitting in there. So there could be a lot of things that happened that would have caused that. But I think the valve must have got a serious amount of rust or something around it, corroded it, and then when we fired it up for the first time, that's most likely when the push rod bent. And now we spent hours trying to fix that, get that valve to close. I know we've got it closing now, but it's still not sealing. So I think it's just rusty, and that happens. It's not something that we can't not fix, but when you dig into something old that's been sitting, all these little things can happen. So it's just part of the process of learning, I guess. So this truck, I'd really love to see it running nice. I think it's a great truck, and it really wouldn't be all that much work for us to either slap a different cylinder head on it, or we could pull this cylinder head off and fix that valve. So we'll have to see what the customer wants to do and go from there. So, but we'll wrap it up on this one. I'm sure something else is going to come from it. Thank you for watching it. Make sure you subscribe, please. And I promise we will get it running good at some point.